What I aim to do in this video is take you through the entire PPDAC process and just point out some good exam technique to make the marker have no doubts that you are an excellent student. So very quickly, for the basic outline of the project is to write a comparative question, draw some graphs, a dot plot and a box and whisker, write 3 comparative statements, and then make an inference about the population from the sample data. And lastly, and I'd like everybody to have a go at this, write an evaluation. In the evaluation, you want to evaluate your conclusion. Does your conclusion make sense considering the context that you have concluded about? Is your inference or prediction realistic? Would you expect the same conclusion if you were to repeat with a different sample or sample size? Does your inference or prediction make sense to extend to other populations? Why not? And could you, what could your findings be used for? And are there any other interesting investigations that lead on from your investigation? Here are a couple of my exemplars that I've put together. Problem. Does private transport tend to shorten the length of time it takes to travel to school as compared with public transport? This investigation is specifically about students who live in New Zealand. This last sentence defines the population. Plan. I plan to download 60 pieces of data from the Census at School website. I may need to do this more than once, as sometimes there are gaps in the data or errors which either need filling or replacing. Once I've collected my data, I'll construct a comparative dot plot and use it to produce a comparative box and whisker graph. I'll carry out this analysis using these graphs and other appropriate statistics, which will help me to draw a conclusion about my problem. Just a side issue here. If the data provided for you has anomalies or gaps or unusual values, a good point of discussion is to pick this up in your evaluation as to whether or not those data points should have been included in the sample or not. This discussion is referred to as cleaning the data. I'll talk to you more about this in class. The data comes from the Australian Census School website, and as such would be expected to be a representative of all students attending Year 10 in Australia. Let's check the problem. That problem doesn't talk about Year 10 students. It should do. And in fact, it talks about New Zealand and not Australia. It should talk about Australia. Public transport is considered to be transport by bus, tram or train. That's me defining the variable of public transport. It's important to put that in the section of data. Private transport is considered to be transport by car, bike or walking. You can do this, but obviously this is done with the computer. Your job is to do it by hand. Something that is missing is some units down here. What is the time being measured in? You should have units down here in brackets. Make sure you label your both dot plots, one above the other, one scale, done very, very nicely. And on yours I'll probably see the median circled, the lower quartile dot circled, and the upper quartile dot circled, or maybe it's a line as opposed to the gap. Also, you would not draw your box and whisker plot on top of your dot plot. You would draw it in the space above it, Now, A bit of exam technique. You can start with I notice, that is fine. The exam technique is, I've told the examiner that I know that the marking guide says talk about shape, talk about spread, and talk about centre. So each time I talk about the different elements, I actually write down, tell the examiner, this is what this statement is about. This statement's about shape. Listen, I notice that the distribution, another word for distribution is shape, I notice that the shape of the dots for private and for public transport are both bell-shaped. Do you agree? I hope so. However, the shape of the public distribution or public spread is skewed to the right. Public skewed to the right, tail to the right. Okay, great comment on shape. Secondly, I noticed that the maximum time to travel to school is with public transport system at a time of 105 minutes as opposed compared to the private maximum of 40 minutes. This statement is okay. I like it because it talks about the numbers. 105 compared to 40. 105 compared to 40. So it's talking about the maximum times to travel to school. In spread, I would also usually talk about range. Side note. Centre. Last bit. I noticed that the median of the public transport is higher than the private transport by a difference of 15 minutes. Lovely. 27 minutes for public transport and 12.5 minutes for private transport in bracket to show where the 15 comes from. 27 minus 12 is 15. I have only considered the median value as the measure of centre, as the mean would be affected by the outlier of 105 in the public system. That last sentence is not needed for achieved purposes, but it is a nice extra to show me that you have good understanding of the difference between a mean and a median. Right, so C, I missed out the U and I did SS. I need those three. If I included a U, I could have dropped shape, for example, but I need three. Don't skimp on CUSS. It is a fairly safe bet that private transport to school is faster to travel than public methods. Agreed? Hope so. Okay, let's keep reading. I can make this call when I consider the distance between the medians compared to the overall visible spread. The fraction is more than 1/3. This is also evident through a visual inspection of the graphs. The majority of the private data is compressed together at values less than the public lower quartile time to travel to school. I think some of you could word that a little bit better than that, to be honest, but there you go. And lastly, and as I said, I want everyone to try this, writing an evaluation. The results are specific for Australia, for the Australian population. For schools in different countries, the investigation would need to be repeated. Time to travel to school is largely dependent on how close to school a student lives. It may be that those who drive, walk or bike live a lot closer as compared with those who bus, train or train. Notice the deeper thinking there. Why the student or the writer of this internal has asked themselves, why is it that private transport is in fact faster than public transport, and they've given a valid explanation, deeper thinking, therefore better marks. I said I'd do two. I will save the second one for a next video. I'll see you in class tomorrow. Hope this helps.